Howdy grubs, this is an older video that I posted on my other channel. I'm not posting retro stuff there anymore, so I moved it here so I can reference back to it, but also because I might continue this series. I'm a big fan of modern Castlevania games, and this series was good for checking out the older titles that I missed. Just letting you know that I use a different model in this video. Some might say a badder model, and my voice is a bit chipmunky. Just pretend I swallowed a kazoo or something. Either way, thanks for watching, and don't forget to tip your YouTuber. I take likes and subscribes.
Howdy, bloodbags. You mortals should be more than familiar with the idea of permanence. You all know that the only things that will truly survive the ravages of time is death, taxes, and sequels. If something does even moderately well, you'll see it get a sequel, maybe several sequels. Typically, you can only sell a thing to someone once, and then they'll never buy it again, so it only makes sense to remake it, update, add more story, and slap a new sticker on it. But back in the day, they would try to make a new game when making a sequel. An entirely, actual building on the basis of what they had, entirely new, genuine sequel. Not, Call of Duty 12. Sometimes they would succeed, and sometimes they would fail. The point being is that they actually tried to make something new and great each time. Today I'm talking about the sequel to the great NES game, Castlevania. If you missed the video talking about it, you can check it out on the end card. Castlevania's story was very simple. You play Simon Belmont, who comes from a family of vampire slayers. 100 years ago, Simon's grandfather Christopher slayed Dracula, and he was resurrected on Easter through a dark ritual. Instead of celebrating the resurrection of Christ that day, or the Easter Bunny, or whatever it is Christians do, they celebrate the rise and rebirth of their Dark Lord Dracula. In Castlevania, you cleared the Dark Lord's home and slayed Dracula yourself. Castlevania 1 is a great game if you love arcade-like experiences, but as I said in the first video, the NES was sort of a transitioning period where games were having to break away from this arcade appearance and had to appeal to the quarterless bastards who live at home. The biggest struggles of this transition was trying to figure out what the correct level of difficulty was and what style of gameplay they were expecting at home. Many customers were content with a new arcade game that could be played in the home, but many were looking for something less stressful and difficult. Some wanted stories and epics to rival the silver screen. That's when we got Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest, a sequel to Castlevania 1 that was trying to bring Castlevania into the era of the action RPG. But it may have been a little bit early, and now we're stuck with one of the most negatively received Belmont excursions. This is probably one of the most hated games on the NES that wasn't made by LJN. While working on this video, I made sure to not ingest anything besides the blood of the innocent and wine, because the palate gets bored on just blood after a while. This means I didn't watch any reviews or videos on the subject before making my review. Or this video in general. I don't necessarily consider it a review. I just don't want my opinion influenced, but after the main review portion is done, I will watch some videos and see how my opinion stacked up to the others. The reason you avoid reviews while making a review is because it's very easy to accidentally plagiarize or borrow others' points inadvertently. Also, you may find yourself taking issue with things that didn't actually bother you as much as it did when the reviewers you watched had an issue with it. But enough of the preamble. We have to get our whip and holy water and set out on another adventure. We don't want to be ill-prepared because tonight is a horrible night to have a curse. The manual/story. Just like the first game, let's take our story straight from the manual. These games had very limited amounts of data, so they weren't able to fit the entire story inside. In these sorts of games, we were expected to read them in full before pressing start. The second coming of Dracula. You're Simon Belmont, the bravest of the brave and boldest of the bold, a gothic warrior respected by kings. Already a huge improvement over the last game, where they didn't even mention Simon's name in the English version. You've earned your praise, not by crushing Viking invaders or Turkish hordes, but by destroying the evil Count Dracula in a duel to the death at Castlevania. But your victory proved painful, as the wounds inflicted during the duel slowly gnawed away at your soul. One day, though, a beautiful maiden appeared. With a soft voice, she warned you that you were possessed by the Count's curse. She said that your only hope of destroying the curse and healing your scars was to find the 5 body parts of the Count and burn them in his castle, forever ending the reign of the Prince of Darkness. Suddenly, like most beautiful visions, she began to fade, and as you reached out to touch her, she said, "Fear not, brave Simon, for if you have the courage to risk your life, you will find the strength to win again." If you remember the English story from the first game, then you already know how big of an improvement this is. There's an actual story here. How does it compare to the Japanese one, though, in the manual? Well, of course, the visuals in the Japanese manual are better and more colorful. It's not black and white. America, as usual, trying to save on their precious printer ink. This translation from Google is going to be a little rough, as it was struggling pretty heavily with the furigana mixed in with the text. Basically, it's been 7 years since the events of Castlevania. Simon moved to the countryside of Transylvania and put Dracula and his body into the next 100-year cycle. He sent that bitch back to the lobby. Dracula is dead for now. Simon sacrificed a part of himself in that fight and damaged his racked body with pain and a curse. Every day the curse ate away at the young Belmont's body, and Simon knew that his end drew near. He pondered his family's legacy in his life before his family's tomb, thinking he'd soon join them, when he felt the presence of a woman behind him. She says that his life is under the control of an evil curse, that it's dangerous, and even now his heart and soul have given way to evil. If this power is allowed to continue to grow, then Dracula will be reborn through Simon's body. This sounds like the plot of one of the seasons of JoJo. The only way to stop the curse is to destroy Dracula's body permanently. You need to find his body while the curse is still weak and burn it in his castle. Once done, the seal will be broken and your body will be freed from his curse, as Dracula will be eliminated forever. The woman disappears, and so Simon sets out on his journey once more with fresh resolve. They're behind and coming after you. Fight, Simon. Fight. Yeah, huge struggle with the Google Translate on this one, but it looks like the American translation team got the gist of it this time. They brought over most of the cool art too, but it's black and white. Shame. The rest of the manual mostly details night and day cycles, the 6 locales, Dracula's 5 body parts, are magic weapons, magic items, and the enemies we'll be encountering. Not much to say, as these enemies don't have descriptions or strategies to deal with them, and the item descriptions are essentially just basic info. Starting the game. Those of you who watched the first video might remember when I mentioned how a lot of NES games don't save. Nintendo created a cartridge that used a battery that allowed for people to save their games. This was originally made for the original Legend of Zelda. I don't know for sure if developers could buy these carts for themselves for their own games, but if they did, then they definitely cost extra on top of Nintendo's licensing fees for carts. So I'm assuming many devs and publishers didn't want to spend extra to get batteries on top of licensing. You probably know where I'm going with this one. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest uses a password system. Ew. This is an alternate save method that didn't require battery and was kind of creative. Rather than saving the game would generate a password. The password tells the cartridge that you have these items and have done these things, so it effectively is a save. But this means that the devs intended for us to use the passwords as their save system. But this also means you can look up all the codes online and skip over bosses entirely. You can skip straight to the end of the game with the right password. If you want to jump to the end of the level and have all the items, you can put in POPBPRBVU2DTRGQZ. I hope you had your pen and paper out. Unfortunately, this Castlevania was never re-released for future consoles, so we don't have a version that saves normally. First attempt. Blind run. It did not take me long for me to realize that going into this game blind is a tremendous mistake. Probably one of the worst mistakes I've made in my life. That said, if that's the worst I've done, I'm doing pretty well, I think. This is a game you have to play with walkthroughs, maps, and videos. This game is straight up a directionless, labyrinthine nightmare. Yeah, they made me bust out a $20 labyrinthine. Anyway, had I not read the manual, I wouldn't even known what was going on in the story, which is just looking for Dracula's parts. Even that basic bit of info is left out of the game. We have some other issues too, like enemies have too much health, they're hard to hit, some move too fast or jump to dodge whip cracks. Sub-weapons have to be bought before they can be used. It's like Vampire Killer MSX, and I hated that game. NPCs give useless info and contextless information. For a game where you can only go left or right, it is so very easy to get lost. But I will say this game does look great. There's a nice amount of detail, and they made some great looking art in spite of the restricted palette. Like, some stuff even has shading. That's crazy. And the idea of an open world, one that's fully explorable, is kind of nuts, especially this early. The world is your oyster. The continue system is also incredibly generous. You have unlimited continues, and when you die, you will always revive from exactly where you died. There is no penalty for death. But I'm going to be super brave and controversial, so feel free to praise me in the comments for my brave and original comments. I don't think Simon's Quest is a good game, but apparently it was a necessary evil, as without the negativity surrounding this game, Koji Igarashi wouldn't have ever pitched Symphony of the Night. We haven't gotten that far yet, but let me tell you, if we didn't get Symphony of the Night, then I probably wouldn't have been a fan of this series. We would have missed out on one of the best Castlevania games ever. If not for Symphony of the Night, the Metroidvania title might just be Metroid-like. Also, I absolutely hate genre titles that are just name of game like at the end. Come on, get creative. Metroidvania is better, but even that's still a little eh. Playing with a guide. So it turns out a lot of the dialogue from NPCs is actually badly translated, which led to NPCs giving you incorrect info. In some cases, it was so poorly done that it would lead players in the opposite direction of what they needed to do. Some things in the game are also designed in a way that you would never be able to know what to do without a guide. This game 100% would have been better received had the game been better at guiding you where you should go. I'm not saying fix the translations and that would have saved the game, but it'd be a big leap in the right direction. I think this came probably just a little too soon for what it was trying to do. Also, surprisingly, there's a leveling system, and as you level by grabbing hearts, it reduces the damage enemies deal to you and increases your max health. So it's very close to being like the last half of Castlevania releases, but it's, you know, it's a little early for them to try this. It turns out that I was never going to be able to make any progress because I needed to buy some items from the first town. That means I needed to farm at the very beginning of the game. Already, not great design. I need to farm hearts to get the holy water and white crystal, but I also can't access the homes in the first town unless it's daylight. Well, you can't access the homes in any town unless it's daylight. So my first whole day in the game is spent farming enough hearts to get the water and crystal. You need these because holy water is the only item that can break false blocks until you can get Dracula's nail. Then the crystal is needed for revealing an invisible platform. You can already see why some people have an issue with this game. And we'll continue this loop of farm, buy, new town, secret, farm, and buy again several times. If you wanted to be more respectful of your time, you could use one of the passwords that gives you the chain whip, or the password that gives you every item. This is what most of my time is spent doing. Farming hearts to get 2 garlic bulbs, 2 crystals, holy water, chain whip, silver dagger, and some other stuff. You won't see your first Dracula part for about 30 minutes to an hour depending on how good you are at the game. So by using a password with all of the items, all you'd be doing is saving yourself the grind and the tedium of mindlessly searching for every single item. But if you did that, then you'd be skipping over the majority of the gameplay, which I recommend. If you have all the items, you can focus on just playing the game and getting through it, finding the parts, and beating the game. But a lot of people would consider this cheating, even though I personally wouldn't, because you can farm forever or skip the farming entirely. But this does circumvent the secrets. I don't think anyone would blame me if I decided to not play the game at all. So here's the rest of the guide up until we step into Berkeley Mansion where the first part is. After we do this, we head to the right, then we reach the downward staircase. We farm for a bit to save up for a dagger, around 16 to 17 game time. You can check this by pausing. Farming again for 100 into town by going down the stairs. Despite all this farming, I can't actually waste all that much time. The night cycle kicks in, and we'll be a good ending. We need to go down the first and how many break those blocks and get the win. Again, take this one more like the holy water and the way that it can stop the water. See how you can use this dagger. You guys can get to the top manual mention. We go right at the blue and double later. You'll lose all your time to save farm. This is the first mansion and the first location of the first body part of Dracula. We honestly could have gone here a lot sooner, but by getting all those items earlier, it'll make this first mansion a breeze. After this mansion, you'll have to play on your own. I've linked a guide in the description. This video isn't meant to be a guide, but rather to show you how annoying this game can be. We'll head to the top of this first room, and make sure you don't jump on the platform or fall through. Then we need to get to this merchant. You need the stake from him in order to beat the mansion. There's one of him in every one of these mansions. You'll still have to manually use it on the crystal holding the Dracula part, so make sure you don't switch off items and accidentally use it. Thankfully, this first merchant is very close to the first part of Dracula. Use holy water to check for more invisible holes in the floor, then use the stake on the crystal. Now, the crazy thing about Dracula's rib is it can be equipped and used as a shield, which blocks projectiles. That's pretty great. Anyway, that's part 1 down. 4 more to go. From here, you would go back to the first town and go left from here, but I think my point has been made. Even with a guide, you will be getting very tired of this game very quick. It's the worst kind of farming. It's just boring, and it's ridiculous how much secret junk there is. But more annoying is the secret junk that you would never guess in a million years, like the breakaway flooring. The whole game is like this. As much as some of you sickos would get pleasure out of seeing me play the whole thing, I have a video to make, and I think including full gameplay from it would be boring, which would be counterintuitive to making the video. The video is here to entertain. If I include all that gameplay, you're gonna be bored of it. Review. I think the game is not very good, and might actually be bad. But I think it could be remade and be made much better. It's a piece of crap, but it's not an irredeemable piece of crap. Despite being an incredibly short game, it neither respects you nor your time. There is just so much time wasted on farming just to even get to a position where you can play the game normally. It's like you have to slay 1,000 enemies before the game will even let you press start. It's not like the game is difficult. We have infinite continues, and we always pick up exactly where we died. It's just that the game is worse than bad. Once you know what you're doing, boring. Maybe it was right to not have more info in the manual, because the more I know and understand the game, the less I enjoy it. When I was first playing, I thought, I must be doing something wrong. I never questioned the game, I just assumed that I was missing something. I think by not having anything in the manual telling you in detail how to play, they intentionally make you think like this. After 30 minutes of playing blind, I looked up a guide and learned that it wasn't me playing wrong, but bad game design in general. In an open world game, it's so very easy to hand the reins to the player and say, have at it, champ. But if you're going to do that, you need to have some clear goals and directions, some things for the players to work towards. You need NPCs that actually drop you some hints and crumbs of info. Sure, games like Skyrim can be truly directionless at times, but the NPCs are constantly muttering about the goings-ons. And if I wanted to, I could just open up the achievements and get some guidance there on what I should be shooting for. So if you're ever lost, you could walk into a town and hear something about the Jarl needing help. In Castlevania 2, you have poorly translated misinformation. How would you ever know to randomly throw water until you break something? I would say the structure is poorly designed, but there is no structure to be had. Once I figured out what I was doing, the combat was fine. It's more Castlevania. The only nice things I have to say about this game is, it's more Castlevania. The sprite work is pretty. And at least it's possible to beat. And oh, the music is good, but it borrows a lot of music from Castlevania 1. I 100% think that Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is entirely optional. I highly recommend that you don't play it. It's not the worst thing I played, and I think it makes it that much worse, that it does function, it can be played, it can be beaten. But holy crap does it suck. Imagine if all the roads in your town were nothing but speed bumps. Sure, you could drive on it, it might even be funny the first time, but it would eventually get so aggravating and frustrating that you might just pack up bags and move towns, or choose to walk everywhere. Castlevania 2 is entirely speed bumps. How does my opinion stack to others? I've said a couple of times now that I don't think Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is a good game. I've said it's bad, but let me elaborate on what I mean by bad. Simon's Quest is doing what a sequel should do. I've said numerous times that I hate the safeness and homogeneity of gaming. Every release and sequel is made as milquetoast as possible to avoid upsetting the average person. They have to appeal to as many people as possible, and that means finding something that works, then repeating it and hammering it into the ground. They don't experiment, lest it upset the balance. Castlevania 2 is an ambitious sequel, but people didn't want ambitious at this time. They wanted more of the same. They wanted more Castlevania 1. I believe that Simon's Quest is perfectly okay. I wouldn't give it less than a 5, but people nowadays consider anything less than 7 be unplayable. It's not some horrid abomination that was going to destroy the series. Had they continued down this path and continued to produce games like this, then they'd be fine. This is the inevitable direction of the entire series. Like, looking back on it, it's easy to see that Castlevania 2 was what was going to be the entire series. It just needed some time to cook. It wasn't finished. Once Symphony of the Night came out, they all played like this. They just had better direction. I don't think this is even the worst Castlevania that I've played. I've watched some reviews, and they all come from that era where we all thought words like poopy and butt farts were peak comedy, when load of shit was good criticism. To say the game is bad just flat out lacks nuance. It's not contrarian or brave to rip on Simon's Quest, it's safe, it's easy, it's going with the grain. But saying it's a good game would be ignoring the enormity of issues that it It has. Ambition doesn't make for a good game. It can be what leads you to make a good game, but ambition itself doesn't make the game good. A good game makes a good game. So I think throat goading for it isn't the right answer either. I won't tell you that C2 is a load of flaming diarrhea farts, but I won't tell you it's an elixir of the gods, a gift to mankind. If you ignore the lack of direction, C2 is still a boring game. They've replaced thoughtful gameplay and stage design with screens where the biggest challenge is walking to the right. The only reason it plays well is that at its core, its gameplay remains unchanged from the previous game. But if you take away all the platforming challenge from the first game, then you just have a walking sim with farming. I love the ambition and the risk that they took, but they're called risks because there's a risk of something bad happening. They shot for the moon and landed in the dumpster. But to say C2 is bad is misleading, just as misleading as it would be to say it's good, but you don't understand it. I could play, and I could finish this. Easily, in fact. In an afternoon, but I wouldn't have fun doing it. It's worse than just bad. It's not fun. I can have fun with a bad game, but if a game fails to be fun, it fails to be a game. The next game I'll be playing will thankfully be going in a bit of a different direction. The next one is Haunted Castle, an arcade original that is very neatly included in the Dominus collection, which Konami was nice enough to send me a few months back. Thanks for watching, and thanks to all the patrons and YouTube members who help fund videos like this. Since it's January, as of this release, ad revenue tends to take a significant dip, so with their help, I'm able to afford things like instant ramen, cereal, and the blood of the innocent. If you want to help like they do, check out patreon.com/SaresThings, or click join below the video to become a member. If you want to help for free, then sub so you're ready for the next Castlevania game. Like, and maybe send this video to a friend. Thanks again to
Firework Penguin, Momentary Unicorn, Aurora the Puppy Moth, Sly, Nat, Selena, Marius, Yeni, Worm Syrup, Rask, Ver, Wild Kitty 69, Beef, Bait, Sly Again, Colorado Blue, Vaderson, Linky, Splackjack, Sushion, and Malding Brick.
and I'll see you all later. I have to go find whoever thought it was a good idea to put instant death spots inside of a town. It's okay, I just want to talk.